Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you all for joining me. I know that some of you, it was last minute notice and all of that, but I'm glad that you all were able to come and join. We are recording this, and I'm glad that everybody gave consent for the recording so that we could kind of get things going. I'm a little excited slash, I don't even know what to say. And yeah, because it's just something that I've been working on for a little bit, and I've shared it with some of the people that are in my community. And but I've also had that, that little nagging thing that you have in your background, in the back of your brain, that just says, "Who are you to do such and such a thing?" And whenever that happens to me, I remember this quote. I don't ever think she should run for president again. However, I think about the Marianne Williamson quote where she says, "Who are you not to?" Because whenever you shine your light, you give other people permission to shine your light too. That's a very paraphrased way to say that quote, but that's what I think about. So, yeah. So appreciate you guys. So what I want to do is I want to share with you what I have been working on for, I don't know, maybe 6-7 weeks now. And with that, let me go ahead and share my screen. How about that? Boom. Everybody can see that okay? And let's see if it will let me. There we go. Okay. So let me know if anybody has any problems seeing this, okay? But when I thought about this, here's what I thought about. No matter what you think about the conservative movement and the GOP, you have to admit that they are really good at planning, and they are really effective at messaging, and they are about that business. They are about that life. And I started to think about, what does the progressive side have as an equivalent? They wrote Project 2025. They wrote Project Esther. They're always writing a project. They're always, as Roger Stone would say, they are always planning the work and working the plan. Always. And what I don't see oftentimes is a progressive version of that. And I don't want people to, like, if you joined me and you are traditionally Republican, I don't want you to hear me say progressive and think, oh, hell, I'm in the wrong place, because you're not. What I find is that most of us agree with progressive principles and policy when it's not being misrepresented and manipulated to get a reaction out of people. So I call this Project for the People, because I believe that what we should be doing in our government and in our legislation is working for the people. And so I found myself politically without a home, right? Not because I don't agree with Democratic policies, I do, but because the Democratic Party just doesn't, they don't make me feel anything. They don't make me, right, Rowan, you feel like they are reactionary instead of having a proactive plan. Exactly. And I asked a really brilliant, beautiful friend of mine, Jim, I said, if you were going to label me, if you were going to give me like a political identity, where would you say I fit? And he said, I would call you a progressive populist. And I was like, I think you're right. So this is Project for the People, the Progressive Populist Promise. And I'm going to be going back and forth a little bit between this presentation and showing you the actual work that I've been putting together, okay? So I want to first share with you a little bit about the purpose of this meeting here today. The purpose of this meeting is to provide a viable plan of action that empowers, equips, and mobilizes people to create connection, to build community, and establish a government that works for regular, everyday people. Meet the creator. So I'm guessing that most of you all know who I am, but maybe you don't, right? So just to share with you all a little bit about me, I'm not a political pundit. I'm not like an expert politician person. I'm just a people person. And whenever you see me in action, it is most likely because I feel like someone is doing something unjust, or they're taking advantage of someone, or they are hurting someone, or people need help. That is usually when I rise to the occasion, and it has led me to a lot of different places, right? So I'm a military veteran. I come from a military family. But it's also led me to advocate against a medical monopoly back home where I'm from in Northeast Tennessee and Southwest Virginia. We ended up literally outside of a hospital for 257 days straight, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because our state legislature created a situation where literally 1.1 million people were getting healthcare from a healthcare system that owns almost every single hospital in the region, which is just insane. And matter of fact, they have a new bill that they've just got in the legislature where they're wanting to do away with any supervision that they have entirely, which is just, again, crazy. When I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina for a while, I did a lot of efforts with folks that were unhoused and took backpacks out and sleeping bags and let them to live with me once. And like literally brought 2 homeless guys to live with me in my spare bedroom. Took one of them through 5 surgeries in 6 months. I just organize, and I'm just an advocate. And so I'm like, I don't know, I think I'm like most people. I guess the only thing that's different is that when I think I show up for people the way that I wish people had ever shown up for me. You know, when like I'm a survivor of SA and different things like that. And I think that that's where it comes from, that response that says, I just want to do the way that I would have wanted people to do for me, right? So it just causes me to show up like this. And that's enough about me. So what is the outcome? Like what will be the outcome of this entire thing? Hopefully it will be the outcome of our movement will be an accurately informed community that is connected through effective conversations. This community will be engaged on local, state, and federal levels, brought together through shared values and not divided by partisan politics. Our representatives will be working for the best interest of the people and held accountable for what they do. Like that is the long-term outcome for Project for the People. And that's what you guys are here to help make happen. What is the process? So this is the part where I'm going to pause and I'm going to share with you kind of the introduction, if you will. Some of you guys may have heard me read this once or twice in the last week. Many of you have not. So let me give you kind of the introduction to give you all an idea of what this thing is. So the Progressive Populist Promise is a strategy on how we stop the madness, get the country on track, and build a country that works for the benefit of the people. The majority of this country doesn't like the direction that we are going. The attack on our institution, the violation of civil rights, the erosion of governmental trust have left many people wondering what they can do to, quote unquote, put things back on track. The purpose of this document is to provide answers to that question. Within these pages, you will discover 3 main pathways that will lead us back to a stable, democratic, constitutional republic that works for the benefit of the people. And I cannot stress how much we need every piece of that. It must be a democratic, constitutional republic that works for everyone. So for me, that means there's a 3-step process for progress to occur. The first step is elections. In order to put progressive populist voices in a position to create legislation, policy, and accountability that works for the benefit of the average person, we must get serious about winning elections. That means developing a new strategy. The foundation of our election strategy is accurate election data. Numbers don't lie, people do. So it's not about what people post on their social media, whatever they say to the pollsters or what they tell their friends even, right? It's about what people do during the short window when they are able to cast their ballot that actually matters. And so we have to start there. So in a minute, I'm going to share with you the process that I went through to identify accurate election data and to create a way for us to use it as we move forward in this project. The second step in the process for progress is communities and conversations. Disconnection and voter apathy led to over 80 million registered voters simply choosing not to participate in the 2024 presidential election. Our country will not survive another election with that level of disengagement. That's why it's absolutely essential that we begin cultivating conversations within our communities that are effective, equipping everyday people on how to have productive conversations, even on hard topics, and giving them the framework to know when, where, and with whom to have these conversations is how we move the needle consistently and permanently. The third process for progress is governmental accountability. And this one is last for a very good reason, because if we don't do the first two, we're never going to get to the third. But government accountability, neutralizing the threat that exists within this current administration is imperative as we move closer to the next election. The most effective mechanism for that is the articles of impeachment, right? But the key will be selecting the individuals to impeach, right? So don't just think Donald Trump. It's about selecting the individuals to impeach, gathering the most compelling evidence to ensure not only the impeachment, but also their removal and determining the order in which they should be impeached. Talk about that as well. When this is done properly, these three objectives will provide an undeniably positive outcome for the people with minimal risk. Now, a note on this project is we need you. Project for the People is a citizen-led effort to be ready for the next midterm election scheduled to take place on 2026. So by reading this document, which you'll get a copy of, or hearing me read this document, you have a responsibility to do what is in the best interest of not only yourself and your family, your loved ones, but also your neighbors, your community, and the population as a whole. To whom much is given, much is required. And now that you are aware of the movement, you are responsible for the action you do or don't take from here. Progressive campaigns tend to wait until the last 3 or 4 months before the election to start truly organizing and implementing strategy. That will be too late in 2026. Our communities are already too stressed out. The dangers of ICE and DHS are becoming increasingly evident in our neighborhoods, and people may not be able to wait that long. Even if they could, would you be the most effective at that time? Probably not. The time is now. And unlike the prominent think tanks, we don't have large financial backers or significant political connections. What we do have is two things: heart and hope. And those are the things that make us the most dangerous to this administration and to those who would like to see the country continue down this path. It is also what makes us a threat to some members of the Democratic Party, as well as the GOP. While the two parties are not the same, the Democratic Party does share some devastating points of intersection with their conservative counterparts. And it's in those shared values and common goals that they find us a hazard to their agenda. So as of today, they're all on notice, regardless of party. This is a pragmatic approach to politics based on what's in the best interest of the people, average, everyday people. And while from a policy perspective, that has traditionally leaned to the Democratic side of the aisle, it is not a free pass for Democratic reelection, especially without a primary challenger. In 2026, members of the Democratic Party who are currently in office have a small window in which to determine their path forward, because after we win a Democratic majority in Congress in November, we begin the process of challenging and defeating those members who put corporate interests, a particular religion, or a foreign government before the American people. Project for the People needs people across all spectrums to come together and deconstruct the current administrative state and redesign our congressional state. There are those who would have you believe that it's not possible, that we don't have the power. They're wrong, and they know it. If we, the people, didn't have the power to make it happen, they wouldn't work so hard to limit or take it away. Why make it harder to vote? Why silence our voices? Why create media monopolies? Why engage in deliberate misinformation and disinformation campaigns? Because they're afraid you'll realize who the real enemy is and stop fighting the people in the same boat as you. This document, this meeting, you guys, is your invitation to support this message and join the movement in the best way possible in your life. So what does that mean? It means not everyone will be able to participate in community organizing. Not everyone can run for office. Not everyone can put together and hold community forums. So find where you can be the most effective and that best fits your life. Just be real about it. Don't use it as an excuse for your apathy, your depression, or your resignation. Push yourself. We know how badly the other side wants the world that they desire. They wrote a 900+ page playbook on it and developed a coalition of over 50 conservative organizations to figure out how to make it happen. So it's time we ask ourselves, what are we willing to do? So that is the introduction to the document. It is an entire playbook, which I will show you what it looks like here in a minute, okay? So the process is the project. Project for the People is a combination of three things: information, resources, and strategy. Information that is provided to people is the election data that I just talked about. Facts with verifiable and reliable sources. Resources that are ready to post or print with information, data, and those sources on them. And then strategy. That data can help you figure out what you're going to do with your campaign, how you should do your field organizing, all of those things. So it will tell you where to go, who to speak with, what to share with them, and how to share it. And now I'm going to show you what that looks like, okay? So I just stopped sharing. I'm going to come back over here with you guys, and I want to show you what I've been up to from the election data standpoint, okay? So a couple of years ago, I did some work looking at election data specifically focused around rural communities. And this time I wanted to look at election data across the board for every community in every state. And I wanted to start with the 12 states that in 2024 had margins of 10% or less. So where did Donald Trump or Kamala Harris win a state by 10% or less? And guys, that's almost 20% of our country. How about that? I want you to just stop and sit with that for a minute. That almost 20% of the country, those states, 12 states, were won by just 10% or less. And then I wanted to look at what counties within those states were won or lost within 10% or less. Why? Because that's the easiest place to make progress. Those are places where people are already engaged, people are already voting. So what does that data tell us? And it wasn't enough to just look at 2024. I needed to look at data from 2020, 2022, and 2024. So I literally have gone through 12 states' election data over the last 5 years for every federal election that they had. Okay. You love stats, Kayla? Well, I'm your girl. So I'm going to show you what this looks like in my world. Okay. So let me share my screen with you. So you can see the screen. All right. So this is the election data. The first state that you're looking at is Michigan. Okay. So this is Michigan's election data. This is the 2020 presidential election. This is the Senate. the House. Now you can see what I do. So listen, when I look at this, I'm looking solely at the 10% margin or less first. And then once I identify those counties that have a margin of 10% or less, then it is about identifying which of those counties are in the same House district so that then you can see where is a seat flippable, okay? So this is also for the 2024 Senate race, the 2024 House, and so on. But then you also want to know additional information. You want to know, once you see these counties that have margins of 10% or less, you also want to find out how many people that voted third party, and how many people that were registered to vote did not vote. Because now you are working with people that are already engaged in the election process in some way or another. We're not talking about, so remember when I said how to use the data? So if I look at, so for example, this population in Berrien, there's 152,703. That was the population in 2024. 305 people were registered to vote. That is a high percentage of voter registration, right? Because we don't even know how many of the 152,000 are of voting age. So if I am running a campaign and I want to look at where do I put my resources, it does not need to be in getting people registered to vote. Not necessarily, right? What I want to look at is how many people actually voted, which was not quite 85,000. So I had 50,000 people that didn't participate. So what I need to find out is what made those people not engaged. How was this one of the biggest elections of our lifetime and people stayed home, right? So at one point, these people wanted to participate in our democratic process. What made them change their mind? What happened? Where are they? Are they tired? Do they have voter apathy at this point? Are they overwhelmed? Do they not know what information to trust? Like, this is the low-hanging fruit. And this is the low-hanging fruit in the counties that had margins of 10% or less. Got it? So then what you do is you take that data and you start to say, well, what's the impact? So in Michigan, just looking at these counties, right? What I know is in the presidential election, there was an 80,000 vote margin, 80,103 votes, okay? There were 48,936 people that voted third party, which is almost 60% of that deficit. If those 59,000 people had voted Democratic, that would have been enough to make up 60% of that deficit. And if the 1.1 million people that were registered to vote that didn't vote at all, if those people had actually voted, that's 1,400% of the difference in Michigan. Y'all see where I'm going with this? So now, if I look at Michigan in House District 1, which is typically Republican, okay? So their vote difference was 101,000. Well, there were 50,000 registered voters that didn't vote in just those counties that are in House District 1. If you hit just these 4 counties and you get those registered voters that didn't vote to actually vote, guess what? And the people that voted third party, that's almost 53% of the votes you need to flip that entire district in Michigan, in a place that people think is not flippable. The data doesn't lie. People do. And assumptions will absolutely hurt you in the political game. If you assume, oh, well, this state is red and this district is red and this county is red, you are missing the numbers and you are missing what's available to you, which is why I said numbers don't lie, people do. And people also make assumptions, right? So here's Wisconsin. I did the same thing in Wisconsin. If you look at the presidential election, Wisconsin was less than 30,000 votes that separated them. 23,575 didn't vote at all. That's 80% of what was needed. And 20,273 voted third party. That's 69% of the difference for that entire state. Right? And so I've done that for Michigan, Wisconsin, Virginia, New Jersey, Georgia, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Minnesota, Arizona, New Hampshire, and New Mexico. So when I tell you that the first step in this process is election data, when I say that we need to start with the data, that's what I mean. Because it shifts people's perspective. It can also determine how you message people. So I'm going to give you an example. So let's say you have a county that is, or a district even, or county district, whatever, and it's a 60-40 district. In the political world, they don't even bother investing in that area because it's a 20-point spread. They don't even send their money there. Okay. Dumb. Because let me tell you how I would say that to people. I would say to progressives in that area, what if I told you that in the last election, almost half of every almost 5 out of 10 people, almost half of the people that voted progressive? What if I told you out of every 10 people that walked in that door, nearly half of them voted Democratic? Would you still feel like a blue dot in a red sea? And what if those people knew how many people were voting Democratic? What if all of those people were putting yard signs out? What if all of those people were sharing information? What if all of those people realized what's available to you? How many of your neighbors think like you, but they don't want to tell everybody because they don't want to be outed on the PTA board or the deacon board, right? But it's all about how you frame it, right? 4 out of 10 is nearly half. Can we celebrate the nearly half? Because that's how we build progress. Now, when I talk about elections and what that process looks like for those elections, I give you this promise first. So the promise is, by implementing this strategy, we can stop the madness. We can get the country on track. We can build a country and a government that works for the benefit of the people, everyday working class people. And so elections start with this data. And so what I did, and this is how I met Eric, I did webinars and I showed people how I did this data previously. And I started by looking at the states that had margins of 10% or less, and then the counties that had 10% or less. And even within the states that have larger margins than that, identifying those counties within those states that have 10% or less. Because guess what? Newsflash, when you flip counties, you flip seats. And then you use this data not only to determine how you run your campaign, but you can also use it in your messaging, like I just showed you, and also in getting funding. Imagine being able to go to a non-governmental organization or even your state or national political party and be able to say to them, hey, listen, the reason you should invest in House District 1 in Michigan is because of this is how many people voted and this is how many didn't, and this is what we could do, and look at this, we could flip this seat. And now you're not just saying, well, because I'm a great candidate and people like me. You're saying because the numbers don't lie and you might want to throw some money my way. Right? So this is the first step, is elections. Okay. The next step in the election process and winning elections is us, me and you. It is conversations. The cornerstone of the For the People project is having real conversations with the people in your circles of influence. The key to having effective conversations, including with the people who disagree with you or on difficult topics, is not only what you say, but how you say it. Okay? Listen to me when I tell you how you say it is so important. And so what we will do is we will have workshops and we will have trainings and we will have role plays where we practice these conversations, where we learn how to communicate, when we rediscover how to engage with each other in a way that is non-confrontational. We have been stuck in, for years, the debate me bro, prove me wrong cycle, and it is not helping us. Right? The debate me bro, prove me wrong mentality it's only served to separate us even further. Right? So in the playbook that you guys are going to get a copy of, okay? In the playbook, I talk about what to talk about and also how to talk about it, okay? And so almost every single issue comes back to these four things. And folks that have been with me for a while, they already know these four things. They know that they come back to healthcare, education, housing, or economic mobility. And some things, a lot of things actually come back to more than one of those, right? We call it HEHE, right? That's the acronym. So when I'm talking about immigration, immigration comes back to healthcare. Immigration comes back to education. Immigration comes back to housing. Immigration comes back to economic mobility. And I can provide you stats and information and facts on immigration in each one of those areas. And I can give you the website and the documentation to back it up. And not only that, I can have a conversation with you in a way that you can connect with me and you'll be able to hear what I'm saying. And we might not leave that conversation in complete agreement, but we will have understanding. And I promise you, you will think about it later. And when we start those conversations now, when we start those conversations in the spring, by the time we get to the fall and the election, people have had time to build connection, to build understanding, and to gain agreement. Hold on, Eric, ask me that question when I get to the end, okay? Now, the conversation must also include four things, okay? So you got four things to talk about and four things that have to be present in the way that you talk about them. And those four things are probably not what some of you would expect, but it is, I call it CARVE, right? It is compassion, authenticity, respect, and vulnerability. Those four things must be present if you desire to connect with people. And let me tell you something, if your plan is not to connect with the people that you're talking to, you might as well shut your mouth, because people do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. I'm going to say that again. People do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. And you can't convey that without compassion, authenticity, respect, and vulnerability. And when you show up with that, they show up in kind. Maybe not initially, but they get there because they will meet you in that place. Not everybody, but I'll take 7 out of 10, right? So after elections, right, or in addition to elections, the second part is conversations within our community, right? And then the third is government accountability. Now, government accountability is the last part of the project for the people, because the ability to even make government accountability happen is contingent upon how well we perform in the elections and the conversations phase. If we don't have effective conversations, if we don't build community, if we don't go after the elections and have a meaningful strategy and start performing right now and organizing right now for elections in November, we won't get to government accountability, folks. But when we get there, because we are going to get there, when we get there, it looks like impeachment and removal. Not impeachment for the sake of impeachment, but impeachment and removal. And you do that by identifying who can actually be impeached and removed. Where do you have strong, credible, reliable evidence that will piss off even the GOP senators, right? So that you can secure impeachment and removal. I have been saying for the last couple of months that it should be Kristi Noem. And when she got reassigned the other day, I was like, told you, she could be the first domino to fall. And she still should be the first domino to be removed from where she is. And then the second step is prosecution, okay? Government accountability looks like impeachment and removal, and then prosecution, and then new candidates, and then replacing some of the current elected officials. That is what government accountability looks like. You don't get to put corporations, you don't get to put a particular religion, and you don't get to put a foreign country in front of the interests of the American people. It is not America first, it's Americans first. It's the people that come first. That's what that means, okay? So what does that look like in real life? It looks like us getting together like we are right now, except having workshops. 2 workshops every month. One for technique and feedback, right? One for learning how to have conversations, right? And then the second for information training. Lisa's in here twice, she said, and so it's giving her feedback. Okay? But it's both of those 2 things at the same time. So in one, you learn the information. You learn the stats for your area. You learn the information so that you can message properly in your area about healthcare, right? So if we know that we're going to have a day of action, and that day of action is going to be around healthcare, then we're going to have a workshop and you show up. And then we're going to go over the healthcare stats and you're going to see the information for your community, right? Now you might say, well, Dani, how am I going to find all that? You're not going to have to find it because I found it for you. Okay, so here's the next part. If you like the data, there's more. So this is actually Project for the People resources, and they are available to you. So I'm going to show you what this looks like. So you will have the link to this Google Drive. And as you can see, I've already got the information for 30 of the 50 states already. And the information that is already in here for your state is the projected Medicaid and SNAP losses because of the one big barbaric bill, right, by congressional district. Okay, so earlier today, somebody was like, Washington, the 4th district is going to get it hard. Well, yeah, they are. So if I go to Washington State and I go to Congressional District 4 and I open that sucker up and I look at Medicaid, 78,000 children and adults are projected to lose their Apple Health. That's the other thing that I did. If you're a state like Tennessee that calls it TennCare, or like Washington that calls it Apple Health, I put that verbiage in here with Medicaid in parentheses so that people know that what they have is Medicaid. What I've seen too often is people not know the difference between Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act because they don't know it's the same thing. So if your state has different names for it, I wanted to include your name, your state's name for it in there so they would know what it is, okay? So SNAP benefits, 23 people in that same congressional district are projected to lose all or some of their SNAP benefits. You will notice that the pictures identify with what I'm talking about. If you see a picture that has an elderly person in it that looks like they're in a nursing home, that is because I've also included the stat around what percentage of their nursing home residents are covered by Medicaid in that state and in that congressional district. So let me just, I'm going to see, I don't even know which ones I did them on, but well, I know it's not that one. Hold on. Georgia, probably somewhere around 7 or 8, maybe. Maybe. Yeah, look at that. Good guess on my part, wasn't it? So this is Georgia. And in Georgia, District 8, 59,000 people are projected to lose their Georgia families, which is Medicaid, right? And due to the GOP's one big beautiful bill. And then if you look right below it, it says 72% of nursing home residents in Georgia are covered by Medicaid. So what am I doing here? I am drawing a picture of a loved one, of an elderly person, right? And then I am also drawing a correlation between the number of people that are going to lose it and the number of residents of nursing homes that are covered by it. And I do the same thing with children when it comes to SNAP benefits. Yep, and the sources are on every one of them. So the sources are going to say Center for American Progress and KFF Health Medicaid Stats, okay? Also, what I've done for you guys, and this one doesn't have all of them in there yet, but it will. So let me show you. So these are all of the states. And when you get down to the bottom, guess what I've got for you? I have your state and you have the actual link to the source itself. So you don't have to trust me. You can actually come to this document and click the link and get to the source for yourself to see where I got the data from, right? So it's about equipping people with these resources. It's about letting people know these are the facts, this is the information, and you don't got to, this no trust me bro thing. Here you go. right? And so when I say that, I made Sandy and Cam co-hosts. So this is about equipping you with what you need to be able to go out into your communities. One of the other things that is on here, so let me see if I can show you Michigan really quickly. So Michigan is the one state that I've already got this piece done for, but there are others coming. Texas has a lot that Sandy gave me, but I want you to see what I also believe, because this is something that is important, okay? So in Michigan, there's Michigan specific ICE info. Look at that. So in Michigan, there's been increased ICE activity in Michigan. ICE has arrested 2,349 people in Michigan between January and October of 2025, which is almost 3 times the number for the same period in 2024. Also, between January and October 2025, 3,388 people have been detained in Michigan. And 4 teenage students and their families have been detained by ICE. All of them have pending asylum cases. Now, guess what? Then I gave you another stat. This is about the 4 students from Western International High School in Michigan and their families that are detained. These are their ages, these are the grades, these are their names, and they have asylum cases. So the idea is to give people accurate information that is specific for them, for where they live, so they can see it and they can know it, okay? So this is what taking action looks like. So can you imagine when we have what I call immigration initiative, right? When we have a day of action around immigration. So I have also created, I just don't have everything uploaded. I've also created a myth versus fact infographic around immigration. And so on one side, you see all of the myths around immigration. On the other side, you see the facts and the laws that govern those facts, and the links to the website where those laws can be found, right? So imagine on this one Saturday, last time I checked, my followers had covered about 37 states. So can you imagine if on one Saturday, everybody on that one Saturday print it out, whether you take it off the Google Drive and you go print it out at your public library, or you take it to Office Depot or Staples or whatever, right? And you print out those infographics and you get together with a couple of your friends, and maybe you set up a table at the flea market. Maybe you go down to the farmer's market. Maybe you just walk around your neighborhood and put them in newspaper boxes, not mailboxes because that's illegal, but newspaper boxes. Or you knocked on doors and said, hey, listen, it's an election year. I'm not part of any political party. I just want you to have information that is specific to our state, okay? And here, all I want to do is give it to you. The sources are on there too. Let me know if you have any questions. And then you just leave, but you take pictures of you and your friends out distributing this. You take pictures of you and your friends out handing things out and holding up signs and things like that. And then all of us on the same day post the images of the work that we're doing, and we all use the same hashtag for the people, hashtag everyday people. And on days of action, you might also have hashtag immigration initiative, and everybody know what the hashtags are for that particular day of action. And when this happens all around the country, all at the same time, before you know it, folks, all of a sudden there's a movement. All of a sudden, people are not going, what do we do to stop it? People are going, what do we do to create what we want? So much effort is spent thinking, how do we stop something, instead of thinking about how do we create what we want? I promise you, they are not sitting around thinking about what can they do about us. They are thinking about what they want, and what you focus on is what you get, right? So the resources, you will get the project playbook. I stole that from the Heritage Foundation, but it's the Project for the People playbook. You will get access to the Google Drive that has social media posts, infographics, email templates, and more. You will get workshops twice a month, and then the Discord community, right? And so if you have not joined my Discord, you can use this QR code to do that. You can literally point your little phone at the screen, take a picture of it with your phone, take a screenshot of it, and then join that later. But that QR code will take you straight to my Discord, and you just follow the prompts and join from there. That, folks, is my presentation. I'm really proud of myself because I said I would give it an hour. I am done in an hour. And yeah, did you guys see the QR code? Was I sharing when I did that, or had I already stopped sharing?
I didn't see the QR code.
Hold on, let me show it to you. Sorry, I had to ask myself, did I go back to the right screen? There, now you see it. So that is the QR code. So now I am ready for questions or feedback.